When I decided to train like a superhero, it wasn't out of discipline, focus, or a mature desire to improve my life. It was an escape from stagnation, an escape from routine, an escape from myself. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't give warning but settles in silently, stretches through the days, and suddenly you realize you're living on autopilot. And it's precisely in this emptiness that the fantasy of childhood reappears, offering an impossible path, but strange enough to rekindle something that time has extinguished. I wanted to feel strength, but I discovered that what I was really looking for was life, and it was this mixture of nostalgia and quiet despair that made me wake up one day and think, what if I trained like a superhero? The idea seemed romantic in my head, epic, almost poetic. My imagination created perfect scenes, the hero rising before sunrise, focused, disciplined, tireless. But reality didn't match the mental dramatization. When I placed my hands on the ground for the first push-up, the fantasy found its first crack. My body didn't respond like the script in my head. My chest burned, my arms trembled, and each repetition seemed to carry the weight of all the days I had neglected my own strength. I imagined a cinematic beginning, but what I received was a raw truth. Your body will always demand payment for the time you neglected it. Childhood teaches you to dream, but adult life demands payment up front, there, on the cold ground. With sweat rising before the effort, I realized I wasn't training like a superhero. I was fighting not to crumble as a human being. Fantasy was an invitation, reality, a confrontation. And between the two, I was learning that the strength I desired wasn't physical strength. It was the courage to try, even small, even weak, even behind schedule. Training like a superhero didn't start with strength. It started with humility, with the uncomfortable awareness that nothing in my body matched the dream. My mind was creating, and at the same time, it was in this embarrassment that something beautiful began to emerge, the possibility of rebuilding, not the idealized image I wanted to be, but the real person I could still become. And now, if you're listening, I want to ask you something simple. Like this video and comment below if you've ever tried to start something bigger than yourself, something that seemed impossible at first. I want to know when your fantasy collided with reality. Your story matters, and it might be exactly the one for you. First step of your own heroic journey. When the second day arrived, all the fantasy I had built in my head began to crumble. The shock came quickly, almost brutally. I imagined my body would adjust, that the excitement would push the fatigue away, that all it took was the will to overcome it. But that's not what happened. Each movement felt heavier than it should be, as if the ground had become more distant and gravity more cruel. The push-ups burned before I was even halfway there. My muscles failed me the moment I needed them most, and my breathing became a desperate effort I couldn't control. It was as if my body was trying to warn me that I had gone too far, too fast. The truth is, there's nothing glamorous about the early days of someone trying to change their life. The internet shows heroes training effortlessly, sweating beautifully, overcoming challenges with epic music playing in the background. But reality has no soundtrack. Reality hurts. It hurts in the aching shoulders. It hurts in the tight chest. It hurts in the breath that doesn't keep up with the rhythm. It hurts in the feeling of failure when the body doesn't respond to the mind's command. And it hurts even more when you realize you're not even close to the image you imagined. Fantasy is clean, organized, powerful. The beginning is confusing, imperfect, full of pauses and tremors. That initial shock made me realize something I'd never admitted. I wasn't strong. Not just physically, but emotionally, too. I'd built up an overly romanticized idea of what it would be like to train like a hero, and the first contact with reality was almost humiliating. There was nothing heroic about my movements. There was nothing cinematic about my sweat. It was just me, trying to take a deep breath while my whole body begged me to stop. And at that moment, I understood why so many people give up exactly here. The instant fantasy meets human limits. But at the same time, there was something in that discomfort that pulled me forward. Something that silently told me that pain didn't mean defeat. that the fact that it was difficult didn't make the effort any less worthy, that trembling, that tiredness, that repeated failure were, in fact, part of the process that nobody shows. Not because it's ugly, but because it's too intimate. It's the moment when the hero isn't inspiration, it's vulnerability. The second day taught me that strength doesn't come from ease. It comes from confronting one's own limits. It comes from the willingness to continue even when every part of the body begs for rest. The initial shock was exactly that, a fracture in the illusion I had created about myself, a necessary break, a door that only opens when pride crumbles. And however hard it was there, in that almost embarrassing discomfort, that I took my first real step, not to look like a hero, but to start becoming someone stronger than I was before. It was only when the initial excitement faded that I began to notice something more worrying than the pain, the imbalance. At first, I just wanted to do the movement. I wanted to feel like I was training, as if effort and progress were synonymous. But the body doesn't work that way. It responds to what you do and to what you fail to do. And I was doing everything wrong without even realizing it. My chest was becoming increasingly rigid, as if it were always tense. My shoulders began to pull forward, collapsing slowly as if carrying an invisible weight. My posture, which I thought would improve with training, was getting worse every day. I was feeling stronger, while in reality becoming more vulnerable. It's humiliating to admit this, but training like a hero showed me that I didn't even understand the basics about my own body. I pushed, and never pulled. I trained what gave me a training sensation and ignored what provided real support. I thought strength was built by increasing repetitions, when in reality it's built by correcting imbalances. It was like trying to build a beautiful house on fragile ground. You might see quick results, but sooner or later it all collapses. And at that moment, I felt like I was crumbling inside. My shoulders were the first to complain, a muffled, persistent pain that appeared at the most innocent moments, when putting on a shirt, lifting a light object, even taking a deep breath. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that pain was part of the process. But this pain wasn't a sign of strength. It was a sign that I was destroying my body in an attempt to appear strong, and that's when it clicked. The hero's journey doesn't begin when you defeat the villain, but when you admit you're fighting wrong. There's something almost humiliating in that recognition, and at the same time liberating. Because when I finally stopped and observed what I was doing, I realized that the real building wasn't in the repetitions I insisted on completing. It was in the patience to correct, including rows, pull-ups, simple stabilizations that I never thought would make a difference. And that's precisely what started to truly transform my body. Training became less glamorous, but much more honest, much more efficient, much more human. What nobody tells you is that true strength comes from the basics, from what seems too small to yield results, but which sustains absolutely everything. The hero's journey doesn't begin with overcoming challenges. It begins with adjustment. It begins when you trade pride for technique, when the goal stops being to appear strong and starts being truly strong. And if you're here following this story and want to continue learning with me, subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning, and I want to take you with me on this journey, step by step, correction by correction, until we build a strength that truly lasts. There's a part of training that nobody sees, a part that doesn't appear in motivational videos, movies, or the photos we admire. It's the silent part, the mental part, the part that hurts more than any muscle. It was there, exactly there, that I realized that training like a superhero had nothing to do with physical strength. It had to do with facing an enemy that doesn't appear on camera. At first, I thought the battle would be against fatigue, against pain, against the limits of my body. But as the days went by, I realized the real enemy was much more subtle and much more cruel. It spoke with my voice. It knew my fears. It knew exactly where to press. During a failed repetition, it would say, "See, you always give up." When I rested for a few extra seconds, it would whisper, "You lack discipline." When I saw someone stronger online, it would ask, "Why do you even try?" And when my breath failed, it would add, "You weren't born for this." I trained alone, but I'd never been so accompanied by thoughts that tried to pull me back to the old version of myself. No one talks about this part. No one talks about the moment when the heroic fantasy shatters and you realize you're fighting something that lives inside you, something that knows your weaknesses with surgical precision, something that doesn't need physical strength to dismantle you. That's when I understood the truth. Training exposes everything you try to hide. It brings to the surface every insecurity, every unfair comparison, every memory of past failures. It puts you face to face with the kind of failure no one likes to admit, internal failure. And that's precisely why so many abandon the process before seeing any results. It's not because the body can't handle it. It's because the mind doesn't want to face the mirror. There was one day when I stopped mid-series completely frozen. My arms were burning, but that wasn't why I wanted to give up. It was because I had just remembered all the times I tried something and couldn't sustain it. All the promises I made to myself and abandoned. All the versions of myself I wanted to be, but never reached. It wasn't fatigue, it was memory. And memory weighs more than any burden. But there's something curious. When you keep going, even hearing those voices, they start to lose strength. They don't disappear, but they diminish. And little by little, you begin to realize that perhaps the real struggle was never against exercise. It was always against the narrative you created about who you are. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to overcome it with strength. I was trying to overcome it with presence. One movement at a time, one day at a time, one internal battle at a time. And in that process, I realized that a hero isn't born when he defeats the villain. He is born when he chooses to fight, even when he himself is the villain. There was one particular day, and I remember it like it was yesterday, when everything inside me felt broken. It wasn't just my body, it was my pride, my expectations, the fantasy I'd built about what it meant to train like a superhero. I woke up exhausted before I even got out of bed. My muscles were stiff, my shoulders heavy, my breath short. Every part of my body begged for rest, and my mind agreed. But for some reason I can't explain, I got up anyway. Not with strength, not with courage, but with a strange kind of sincerity. When I put my hands on the floor to begin that day's set, I realized I didn't even have the energy to complete the first repetition. I was trembling. I was failing. The movement crumbled halfway through. The idealized version of myself, the one I imagined training like a hero, simply didn't exist there. There was only someone trying not to give up. And, for the first time since the beginning of this challenge, I felt something profound. Perhaps continuing, even broken, had more value than trying to appear strong. The fantasy crumbled. It crumbled almost silently. It wasn't a dramatic, cinematic moment. An epiphany with epic music in the background. It was simple. It was human. It was real. I understood that strength isn't what you show when you're at your best. Strength is what you sustain when everything inside you tells you to stop. It's what you do when nobody's watching, when there's no audience, when there's no external motivation. It's there, on the ground, trembling, failing, starting over. That identity begins to change. Gradually, I realized that discipline wasn't born on the days I felt good. It was born on the day I felt broken, because it's very easy to train when your body cooperates. It's difficult to train when you can barely convince yourself to try. And on that day, the struggle wasn't against exercise. It was against all the justifications I could use for not doing it. It was against the automatic impulse to abandon the process just because it no longer seemed beautiful or inspiring. The truth is, most people give up precisely at that point, the moment when the effort stops seeming like a reward and starts seeming like reality. Training like a hero doesn't mean being invincible. It means being honest. It means facing the limit not as a wall, but as a mirror. And when I finally accepted that, something inside me changed. I stopped trying to play the role of someone strong and started becoming someone real. Identity doesn't change when you win. It changes when you persevere. When you get up even without motivation, when you try even when defeated, when you keep going even when broken, because it's at that exact point that strength ceases to be appearance and transforms into character. And on that day, for the first time, I realized I wasn't trying to be a superhero. I was trying to be someone who doesn't give up on themselves. Same. When the 30 days finally passed, I realized something that no physical transformation could teach me. Yes, my body changed, and it changed in a real way. My movements were firmer, my breathing more stable, my posture more conscious. But none of that compared to what had changed inside me, because the truth is, throughout this whole process, I wasn't just training muscles, I was training identity. And that's the part nobody tells you when you decide to start a journey like this. In the beginning, I wanted strength. I wanted quick results, definition, power, something that would show the world I was making progress. But in the end, I realized that what really matters isn't what you show, it's what you sustain. It's who you become in the moments when no one is watching. The silent workouts, the exhausting early mornings, the days without motivation, the moments when your body aches and your mind tries to negotiate, all these invisible moments are what build what truly remains. The 30 days didn't give me a superhero body. They gave me something much bigger. They gave me clarity. They showed me that heroism has nothing to do with superhuman strength. It has to do with presence. It has to do with getting up even when you don't want to. It has to do with repeating the basics until they cease to be an obstacle. It has to do with continuing even when no one will applaud you for it. Heroism is consistency, and consistency is born precisely on the days when you are weak. The most curious thing is that, while I was training thinking I was strengthening my body, it was my mind that was being rebuilt. I stopped seeing myself as someone who always fails halfway through. I stopped feeding that old narrative of giving up. I started seeing myself as someone capable of sustaining a commitment, even a small one, even a simple one, even an imperfect one. And that, in itself, is worth more than any aesthetic transformation. On the last day of the challenge, when I did the final repetition, I didn't feel victory. I felt gratitude. Gratitude for not giving up on the day I was most tired. Gratitude for not listening to the inner voices that wanted to sabotage me. Gratitude for discovering that discipline isn't born from results. It's born from decision. And when that decision is repeated every day, it changes everything. Not because you become strong, but because you understand that strength is merely a consequence of persistence. And if you've made it this far, I want to speak directly to you. Leave a like, because it shows me that this story made sense. Comment below, saying, "I'm going to continue," so I know you're on this journey with me. Subscribe to the channel, because this series is only just beginning, and we still have many challenges to face together. And before leaving, click on the next video that is appearing on the screen. If you've made it this far, you're already on this journey. Now it's time to take the next step. Let's do it together. One day at a time, one effort at a time, one small victory at a time. Because nobody is born a hero. We build ourselves along the way.